Five, four, three, two, one. Hello. Welcome to Space Engineers on the Xbox, and welcome to part 3 of the new player guide. What are we going to be doing? Well, we're going to be looking at the Redshift map again, where we last left off in Creative. I went through tool use, and I said that we would look at building. So to kick off, click in the left stick, you'll bring up your block menu. Now you'll have recent blocks, and you'll have your first category, which is light armor. So in Creative, to build anything, you tap the left stick in, then you select your page on the build radial, and then you select your part of the build radial that you want. So let's say light armor blocks. Then we'll see a block. This is a large grid block. You can change the grid size. I'll talk about that in a moment. But we want a large grid block. And to place the block, you tap the right trigger. To get rid of a block, you tap the left trigger. You can place single blocks, or in Creative, or Creative Mode Tools in Survival, you can create a line of blocks, or even a plane of blocks. But we won't talk about that just yet. This is how everything starts in Space Engineers, with blocks. From that kind of block, you can go to this kind of ship eventually. And when you've got a block like this selected, if you push up on the D-pad, you will change the block type. So we've changed to light armor slopes. Now that's facing the wrong way. So if we want to change its rotation, what we look at is the line that runs the axis of rotation. You'll see a green line in the middle. That tells us we are going to rotate this block around that axis, like this. Same here. The same here. And the same here. If we want to change the axis of rotation, we press down on the D-pad, and we will change the way that the block rotates around that line. To rotate, you push left and right on the D-pad. If we push up again, we'll get to this block. And as you can see, this block fits nicely into the gap left by these blocks. And to take a block out of your hand, it's the same with weapons. LB and B. Weapons, tools, anything in your hand in Space Engineers can be returned back, even the paint tool. We'll talk about that some other time. Although if you want to look at any more of this, just look at my actual tutorials that go all the way from tutorial 1 through to 62 so far. And they cover a broad range of subjects. But there's a little platform. When we're placing blocks, like this one, we can cycle through and we can pick the block we want. So the light armor block, like this. But if we want to place the blocks in a line, if we tap the right stick in, you'll open the options menu. There's a lot of stuff here, but we're just going to focus on this one, the build menu. And you'll see here that you can toggle multi-block building. I've got it set to line. You can set it to plane. You can set it to single. But we'll stick with lines to begin with. And like I said, that lets you draw out towers of blocks. And you can delete them the same way. Everything can be manipulated from this shortcut pad. If you look, the page I'm on at the moment is the block type, the rotation, and the axis of rotation. You can modify this by holding the right bumper, which will bring you to another menu where you can turn your torch on and off. You can activate the paint tool like we did before. You can activate first and third person. You can take your visor on and off, not advisable in survival in space. But if you hold down the left bumper, you'll get another menu. This allows you to bring a block closer to you, push it further away. And you can also activate automatic turn. When you put a block down, it will attempt to orientate that block correctly to the next block. Spin the block, basically. I tend to sort of keep it off because I like to put these things down manually. And that one there is symmetry mode. We're not going to talk about symmetry mode just yet. We'll do it in a moment, though. That's all well and good. That's how you could start making a base. You know, several walls, a door, some windows. You've got a little outpost. But what happens if you want to build something a little more complex? What happens if you want to build something like this? My advice is look at the way that Keen have built that fighter. Look at the way it works. And then maybe give it a go. But we're going to start simple, as always. So click in the left stick. Move along until you reach Ship Essentials. You want a landing gear, but look at the size of that thing. That's not a small grid landing gear. So hold down the left bumper and tap X, and you'll change to the small grid. You can see it there, just in front of me. Now the small grid landing gear will lock to the block that it's closest to. And if you look at it, the heel on these has two lights at the back. So when I press that down, we've now got a landing gear. Now a ship is essentially a cockpit, a power source, a gyroscope, and some thrusters, especially in creative mode. There are far more components to a ship if you want to add oxygen, if you're using a different fuel other than atmospheric, or a thruster other than atmospheric or iron. Atmospherics do not work in space. Iron work in space. They don't work in atmosphere. Hydrogen work in both. The caveat with ions working in atmosphere is at about 20,000 meters, they'll start to kick in. So you can use them to escape gravity if you're running low on hydrogen fuel. We're going to look at a little little ion ship. Something simple. So cockpits in Space Engineers are built or designed to fit, this particular one, on a 3x3 grid of blocks. Go to our build menu again. And if you notice, that cockpit is certainly not going to fit. But if we orientate it once like that, and then choose the red line and rotate round, we now have a cockpit. Our cockpit is placed. Remember what I said? Essentially, it's a cockpit, a gyroscope, and a power source. So since we're in creative, we don't have to worry about batteries charging or any of that. So we're just going to slap down a power source. That's going to be a battery. This little tug type thing is going to be battery powered. Now, when I start doing the more advanced building tutorials, I'm going to talk about symmetry mode. But for now, we're going to just do this by hand and make a little base for our what will eventually be our ship. Next thing we want, we've got power. We want a gyroscope. Pop one down, and you have a cockpit, you have a battery, you have a gyroscope, which means that ship will tilt, pitch, roll, yaw, but it won't fly because it has no motive force. It has no thrusters, and that's what we want to look at. So, simply, a ship requires one thruster in every one of the directions. Go to our thrusters in the build menu. We place one iron thruster. That will give us force moving forward. If we want to slow down, we're going to need one at the front. So now we can move forward, we can move backwards. We're going to need thrust to lift us. We'll put one on that side of the battery, and we'll drop one on this side of the battery. That's our thrust to lift. And so we can move down. We'll put one above that. Whoops. There. We have up, down, backwards and forwards, but we're missing left and right. Left and right. There we go. Left, right. So now we have all the thrusters we need to take this little thing for a spin. But let's make sure that we've got some landing gear. Now, what I said before, with landing gear, look at the heel as you place it. You'll see the two little lights at the back. Turn the jetpack off, be easier. See, some landing gear, a little ship. We'll save. To do that, both bumpers and X will quick save. Now we've got that, we might need something to see where we're going. So pop open your build menu and navigate using the triggers until you reach the lights, and just build and make sure those are facing the right way. Pop a little spotlight on the front. That's your little ship. It's got no controls on it at the moment, but if we go into this sort of view, you might see that I can fire the thrusters. This. So, hop into the cockpit. First thing you do is press your inventory button, the two squares, and tap across until you reach the info box. From there, use the left stick to get to the name. Change the name to something unique. I'm just going to call this Tug 1. That now identifies that grid to the game as Tug 1. And when you upload it onto Mod.io, people will see the name Tug 1 rather than Small Grid 3578. So we need to put a few things on the shortcuts. And this is the part that some people have issues with or problems. So I'm going to walk you through it. First things first, we need to look at our landing gear. So we open up the inventory again and we go to the control panel. Now, you can use the D-pad to move downwards until you reach the first landing gear. Press A on it till it's selected. Then hold down the right bumper, push down once, press A, push down again, press A. You can band select by holding A, but just to get started, tap it. Then use the left stick and move across till you reach auto unlock. Turn that off. This stops your landing gear from instantly locking. So if you accidentally land, you won't lock them to the ground straight away. Then tap right again and up on the left stick to get to block group. And we're going to call this Tug Gear. Once we've got Tug Gear, save, and we've now got a group. Now before we go back to the ship, we're going to go to our thrusters and we're going to press A on the iron thruster. Then we're going to tap A while holding the right bumper on all the thrusters in that group. Then the same deal without using the D-pad, because if you use the D-pad, you may well set your thrust override. And if you set that, then your thrusters are not going to respond to cockpit control. Once we're on block group, these are going to be called Tug Ions. And then we save that as well. So that's the two things. We've got our landing gear. We've got our ions. Now we come back to our cockpit. We're going to put our ions on the up direction. So hold down the D-pad until the toolbar config menu turns up. Then tap the right bumper until you reach groups. Choose your tug ions with the D-pad and toggle the block on off. Then we're going to put our landing gear on the down direction. So the same deal. Hold down the down on the D-pad. Get to groups. Tug gear. You don't want toggle block on off. What you're looking for is switch lock. Now you've got switch lock. We're almost done. One more thing we're going to do is we're going to put our light by holding down the D-pad. But this time we're going to go to all blocks. And we're going to choose this spotlight and toggle it on off. And now, from the D-pad, we can toggle on off. So, let's unlock our landing gear. See our little tug. And we'll be able to lift off. Let's take a little trip over. Now this won't be awfully fast or awfully maneuverable. We're going to take a trip. Let's pop the over here to the blue ship. Turn this light off. Blue ship. Light on there. As I said before, when we were doing the controls in the earlier videos, holding down the left bumper allows you to roll the ship or your engineer. Use the right stick to control the roll while the bumper's held down. If you want to go into third person, right bumper up on the D-pad. You want to change the camera, hold down both bumpers, spin the right stick, and change the zoom distance by using the left stick up and left stick down. Go back into first person for a bit. This is our little Tug what? These are all the basic building blocks of small grid ships. You can start adding things like oxygen generators, so you can get a hydrogen oxygen generator on the ship. You can then plumb that into the cockpit, so you've actually got oxygen rather than relying on your suit supply. Here. Modify it with as many armor blocks as you want as well to pretty it up, hide the thrusters even more. When we get down by tapping B close to the ground, our gear will go yellow. We press down on the D-pad, we lock, the camera angle will change. We push up on the D-pad, turn the thrusters off, turn that spotlight off, jump out, and there's our little ship. And that is how to build a tiny, tiny tug ship in Space Engineers. And from that, you can go, as I said, to things like this, or the blue ship, or my Callisto 71. It just takes time. Space Engineers is one of those games that requires a significant amount of time and investment. The learning curve is steep. You will need to rely on YouTube tutorials like mine, specifically for the Xbox, to get some of the more complex elements of the game or get a refresher. That's what I turned the channel towards last year, and as of April the 27th this year, I'll have been doing this for a year. A whole year's worth of Xbox only focused content for Space Engineers. So carry on, join me for the next one. Take care, stay safe. I'm going to say it, bye for now.